basically take one door off, and if you guys, after we do that, want to slide around here and watch us move the steering column, then we're going to remove the other door. We'll stop, we'll talk about it, then we'll take the roof off and push the dash.
So a lot of times what happens is that the door itself gets crushed in. So you get a T-bone into the side, so you have to try to get to the doors. Some of the things that we have to watch when you start prying the doors open is that you don't crush it in on the patient. What he's doing now is trying to get himself a little bit more room, trying to get a little bit more purchase point. Once again, these are all just techniques, just tools in the toolbox. If there was a person obviously sitting in where he was at, he would not be able to use that. They just have about 10,000 pounds force, spreading force, so you have to really watch it. See the seat moving? If there's a real patient, he wouldn't be able to move the spreaders quite that far. Okay, we've opened the door up at this point. He's going to go ahead and tie the door tight so that the metal, when we actually get it loosened, doesn't just fly off and hit someone. He's still using the spreader at this point. Basically what he's demonstrating is that if you only would have a spreader, that would be the only thing that you would be able to do. He was able to pry the door, push the door right off. In the real world, we'd probably go ahead and get the cutter and cut the hinges off so we can do that in a faster evolution. What we're going to do now is we're going to pull the steering column up off of someone, okay? And the idea is that you may not have to move it very much. It's just little increments of movement can give you a lot of space to move that person. Don't over extricate people. You know, just because we can cut the cars completely up and send them to the junkyard and the heap is great, but you can do a lot, sometimes too much cutting. So basically the first thing that we're going to do is we got to remove the windshield. Second thing we're going to do is put a 4x4 over the dash and onto the roof area. We're going to use a chain, and we're going to use some kind of a jack. We have the high lift jacks. They're very inexpensive. They're like $40 from down at Farm and Fleet. What they're working on here is going ahead and pulling the steering column up off of someone. A lot of times when you get into a head-on collision, the cars will actually collapse around your legs. And we have to try to get the dash up. We have to try to get the steering column up off of it's a fairly easy technique to do.
One guy,
and
two guys do it for time, one guy needs to do it. Move the dash off.
It's just something that happens quite often. When the whole car will just simply collapse around the driver. Their legs will get where you can see there with the clutch pedal and all that. Our feet get hung up in there when we have accidents. Those are all things that we need to try to get up off of that person so we can get them out. Once again, we don't want to overdo things. We just want to go ahead and try to get that person out of there. This is strictly a demonstration. A lot of times we'll be able to cut the steering wheel, the round part there, and we'll just cut that with our hydraulic cutters. And you can see the steering column going up, but you're lifting it a couple, 2 or 3 inches, which might be enough to go ahead and get that person out of there. We're going to go ahead and pry the other door off. Remembering the anatomy of your cars, it's really, really important when you go to cut your automobiles up. The post that's already bent on the front of it is called the A post. These are the B posts, and back here would be the C post. So when you talk about cutting the cars, you got to kind of remember about the anatomy of the automobile. What we're going to demonstrate here is cutting the hinges. A lot of times you can do a lot less shaking around with the patient if you just go ahead and cut it. It's harder on your cutters to cut it, but it's if you can see it, cut it. Okay, we got the doors open. Go ahead and demonstrate taking the roof off. One of the tools that's kind of made a comeback in the fire service has been the Sawzall tool. All it is just an electric powered saw. You can do some cutting with the cutters on the hydraulic base. When you get to the wide C-posts, they're sometimes really tough to cut. Also, too, you can't cut plastic very easily. It just kind of twists, so we've been using the Sawzall with a lot of success.
We had them in the squad. I mean, them actually.
Okay. Well, we got 4 patients. What they're doing now is they're doing what we call a dash roll-up. It's just another technique if you still got to have more room. Okay? If the cars get down on the people, we can actually cut the top off, start raising the dash, and kind of just pulling the car apart. Almost just like you're cutting the whole front of the car away from that person. Okay, what they're doing here is, once again, they're just opening up the area. They're going to use the spreaders and spread the dash up. It's kind of tough. Alright, what's going to happen now, folks, is that once you get the people out, what do you have to do with them? They have to be packaged for transport. So under our BTLS protocol, what do we do with them? Everyone take BTLS? Know what that is? You know, you're within that first hour, you need to try to get them out. Where do we do all the stuff? What do we check for? Breathing, bleeding, and we're going to start transporting them. If we're out into the township areas or out in the rural areas, what are we going to use if we have a real critical patient? We're going to call it a helicopter. When do you call a helicopter? Once you get there and you really realize, hey, this person's really hurt, you got to call them. Because we got to impact them in that first hour that we want to do. In the city, we're probably going to go ahead, unless we're going to have a long extrication, and just transport to the hospital. And what our hospital's been doing is we've been letting them know, hey, this person's, you know, really hurt, and they're going ahead and call in the hospital. They're going ahead and call the helicopter even before we get there. But we're taking them to our emergency room. Unless, once again, we're in a long extrication, and we'll just have the helicopter come to the scene if we can land them. Okay. What we're going to do is that we're going to go ahead and package these patients. How do you package them? Well, we need to put them on a backboard. We need to get a seat collar. We're going to go ahead and check and make sure we're breathing. We're going to do all those things just like our protocols tell us to do. Most important thing is what? What's the most important thing we got to do, all of us? Breathe, right? So we have to protect the airway. So that's the number one thing that we're going to do with any person. We got to make sure their airway's going, they're not bleeding out somewhere, and we're going to go ahead and start getting them ready to go. So just give us a second to move the squads in. The reason we didn't have it, once again, the people in there, we don't want to take a chance on anyone getting hurt. Unless you got a multitude of people, which we don't, you're doing both things. You're going to cut the car apart, then all of a sudden, as soon as you get them out, now what are you? You're an EMT again, or a paramedic, or whatever you happen to be, and you have to jump over and start taking care of the patients. Okay? So unless you have just a dedicated rescue company and an engine company, you're probably going to be doing both things. It's going to kind of work out that way for you. Folks, remembering in a real life situation, what are we going to do? What's the first word that's going to come into our mind? What do we do when we get out of a motor victim accident? Check the scene. We're going to triage the patients, aren't we? Aren't we going to go through and see which one needs to go first? And the least injured one does what usually? They get stuck on the bench, you know, on the squad bench, and you haul them to the hospital. Those are the ones that's going to wait till the last. So the most critical ones, in this instance, Tammy would be the most critical patient. She's going to go ahead and fly. We're going to fly her to a level 1 trauma center. In our case, that's going to be in somewhere in Akron. Is it Akron City, guys? Is that where they usually fly them to? Okay, so those are some of the things that we're going to have. Okay. These here would be what we kind of call rocking wounded. All right, yeah, they're hurt, yeah, they need medical attention, but yeah, we can go ahead and take care of them in a timely fashion. How long would you wait? Right, you're going to have to find out how long they're going to be. Are they really coming? If they're in the air, in our area, they're going to be on you in anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, that's not too long to wait. if you're out on an accident scene, because you got to think about how long it's going to take you to load the patient in your squad and drive them to the hospital. Okay, and if they're that much of a trauma patient, they're probably going to go ahead and transport them on out anyway. So we're in that situation. What we feel comfortable with is getting a hold of the ER docs and telling them what we have, see if they concur with our decision. Okay? If they don't want us to wait, we're going to go ahead and transport them on over. But most of the time, they're going to kind of go with what we're seeing. You know? If it's within a couple minutes, 2 or 3, even 5 minutes, they're going to tell you if you're comfortable with it. If you're all right with it, go ahead and wait. We've had that situation a few times.